Your Excellency, Consul General of Indonesia, Excellency, Consul General of Malaysia, Mr. Motiwala, Zubair Saab, Imran Samad Saab, and Ijaz Nisar. It's a great pleasure and a privilege for me to be here this afternoon with you. And I'm from the stock that is full of optimism. I suppose that's also my DNA, as I come from a family that struggled through partition, and from a family that spent time with Mr. Jinnah, considerable time, both in Karachi as the Governor General, and then later with Mr. Jinnah in Ziyarat. And subsequently, after the passing away of Mr. Jinnah, with Miss Fatima Jinnah, the relationship between my mother and Miss Fatima Jinnah went on till she passed away in 1965. So I come from a different perspective, a perspective of not only hope, but a context that says Pakistan will not only survive, it will be a vibrant society in the 21st century. There is no doubt in my mind. And when I say that, these are not empty words. I just want to cite two examples for you, recent cases of Pakistan's resilience. Number one, our nuclear asset program. Commonly, and the perception is the program actually started in the mid-1970s. But the reality is the program started in 1964. And the foundation of the nuclear asset program and the armaments architecture was put in place by none other than Mr. Zhou Enlai, the Prime Minister of China, and President Ayub Khan. The military officers who were engaged in this architecture back in 1964 were General Musa, Commander-in-Chief of the Pakistan Army, Air Marshal Noor Khan, Commander-in-Chief of the Pakistan Air Force, and my father, who was then the Director General of Military Operations and Head of Armaments. So the foundation was placed in 1964, and from 1964 to 1998, we continued to persevere under extreme circumstances. And at the end of that whole process, in 1998, we disclosed to the world that we do have a nuclear capability. Now, if that wasn't a resilient Pakistan, I don't know what is. If economic issues overwhelm us, but we can develop one of the most formidable nuclear armament programs that is responsible and safe, with the Special Plans Division, SPD, and there are senior military officers in this August audience who are aware of the work that SPD has done to make sure that the program is an absolutely sound and safe one. The second example I want to give you, a more recent one, is our war against terror, led by General Raheel Sharif and then coordinated across all forces. 80,000 lives and $130 billion in cost. And we had a formidable success, and never did we step back from the fight. And that included also a cousin brother of mine who was a Major General, the highest ranking officer who was a Shohada by the name of General Niazi. So I think we don't need to be small-hearted. We don't need to be intimidated by these circumstances because we feel overwhelmed. It shouldn't be the case. What I'd like to do is, rather than go from moment to moment, is step back and share with you where we've been as a country, as an economy, over the last 10 years. 2012, Pakistan was the 23rd largest economy in the world. 2022, the year that ended June 2022, it is still the 23rd largest economy in the world. Measured on the basis of the Purchase Parity Principle, PPP. We measure in nominal terms international financial institutions measure in terms of PPP. Our GDP in PPP terms was $578 billion in 2012 and $1.56 trillion in 2022. Our exports, which have been lagging, and there is a huge opportunity for improvement, were $25 billion in 2012 and improved to 31 billion in 2022. Let me digress from the economic numbers to an area of our economy which has been under substantial criticism for lack of transparency, for one-sided decision-making. But I'm one of those that feels it's one of the best things that has happened to Pakistan. My reference is the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. In the last 10 years, we have completed 17 projects at an investment of $27 billion. And between now and 2030, we will complete another 62 for another $32 billion. Since 1947 to today, this is the single largest concentration of economic capital investment in this country in infrastructure, energy, special economic zones, and a number of other areas. These are the facts over the recent past 2012-2022. I would now move on to what are the options available for us in terms of dealing with the debt crisis. For context, in 2013, our annual debt servicing requirement was $6 billion per annum. In 2023, the current year, it has gone up to $23 billion. So when you have a jump 4x, it's going to pose challenges. It's going to have a stretch. Keeping that in perspective, our first option is, and I still remain hopeful, that there could be a breakthrough with the IMF and we could work through to a solution when IMF comes on board. And if IMF comes on board, all other bilateral institutions like the World Bank, International Finance Corporation, Asian Development Bank come on board too. Option number one. Option number two is reprofile, restructure, realign the debt. If I go back to 2012, Greece defaulted with $142 billion in debt. It has taken Greece some time to navigate out of that situation. Today, Greece is the economic star of the European Union. So by giving the Greece example, and there are many other examples, there's Argentina, there is Brazil, and one of the most talked about countries today, Ukraine, that went through similar processes and were able to transition in a responsible way out of this quagmire. Option three, we can access $100 billion in special rights and privileges through the Emergency Debt Relief Program put in place after the pandemic. There have been challenges with the program, but unquestionably, there are opportunities where we can do that. And number four is China comes forward. It's the largest creditor nation for Pakistan. Out of 126 to 130 billion in debt, China has about 42 billion and decides to reschedule and realign Pakistan's debt. This is both commercial bank debt as well as the public sector debt. When China does that, and we can cite cases after cases, when a country takes a senior position like China, other bilateral institutions follow suit. So these are the four options that are available for us. And then there are permutations and combinations. Last night, Imran Saab was sharing with me at lunch that State Bank has now allowed imports across the board. There will be refinements to our budget before it becomes a finance bill. And perhaps these are precursors to a settlement with the IMF. The US government continues to be very supportive for Pakistan in terms of coming to a landing and coming to a fair proposition. So I just wanted to share a few things with you in terms of hope and optimism going back to 1947 because of the virtue of my own family and the hope on which this country was created. It was created to be around for many, many centuries, and inshallah that will be the case. Thank you.